I was really appreciative of all the people who commented on my last week's video because I really did feel like Shadow House, especially with episode 6, felt like it was trying to retread grounds that we already kind of knew. My whole thought was like, is this stuff that I already figured out and now they're revealing it? No, it seems like, according to many commenters, that this is a lot of information that was kind of pushed into the first season because, again, they didn't know they were going to have a second season. So now we're actually getting to the points in which these characters are figuring this stuff out. And I kind of feel that same thing with episode 7 as well, as we're really starting to get an indication here, at least for the children, that there's more to your face, your living doll, than you really think. And especially from Luis's perspective, it's really interesting to see her really kind of start to slowly figure out that there's more to Lou than you really think. I will say this episode was all over the place. There was so much information in here, and there was a couple points in which I was trying to figure out exactly what was the point of it. I think especially the part where we have Patrick and Ricky were looking into different peers. I was really trying to figure out what was the point of them kind of pointing that out. I guess it'll probably come down the line and showing us how essentially more connected people are than we really think. I mean, especially the whole thing of, yes, Mary Rose being connected to Barbara obviously is a very important thing. If there's some sort of conflict happening, them knowing each other is probably going to be pretty important. And then we have this whole thing with Sarah talking about her having a partner. It might be Douglas, this other person that debuted with her. So even though a lot of it's like, why are we talking about this? It really does seem like there is some significance to it. Something that later on we'll look back and go, oh, that's why they were pointing that out. But no, starting off with Luis's perspective in this episode, she's walking around with Lou. She wants to get information because she's so excited. She doesn't normally like Kate, but because Kate is kind of showing her something exciting, she's a little bit invigorated to help her out. And yes, the whole idea behind everything is that she wants her invitation, and she thinks that if she can figure this stuff out, she might get her invitation. She goes around, has Lou basically give all these different faces to get all the information she can on different shadows and their abilities. I was kind of hoping right here that they would actually show some of them, or at least explain some of them, because I'm always interested to know these different abilities. This leads to her going to Mary Rose directly because she wants to learn more information about the invitation. According to Mary Rose, it's pretty much the information that we know, or at least we can again assume the idea that when you get an invitation to go to Grandfather's Wing, to leave the Children's Wing, only you know about it. And beyond that point, they don't really have any information. Do you do a debut? Do you have a test? They don't really know. But the thing that Mary Rose points out is watch out for your face. Your living doll is not looking well. And she kind of brushes it off and continues on. And we keep seeing, as Lou is obviously looking very pale, she's looking very tired, she's got the bags under her eyes, but Lou keeps kind of driving forward. And this leads to her talking to Benjamin. And with Benjamin, we're kind of getting a little more into, I guess, the bond between the living doll and the shadow. And I think this is something, again, that's kind of pointing us towards the end game. As we've seen from the perspective of Grandfather's Wing, we've seen a lot of adults. And the interesting thing that was about them was that they were all one complete form. We've seen that with Edward as well. This idea that there's a point, possibly a point in which the shadow will consume the living doll and become one entity. So while everybody was saying, why is this living doll Edward commanding the shadow? I mean, they're children, but still, maybe it's because they haven't debuted yet. No, it's because he's one entity. And it seems like Benjamin knows that, or it seems to imply that he knows that, because he's telling Luis as well, your living doll looks pale. You need to take care of your living doll. She's not just your face. There's more to her. She has a whole body, and it should become fit. Work out, get better endurance, get your metabolism up. He's really kind of the extreme side of making your living doll strong. Again, hinting that Benjamin knows that eventually he'll have to use that body. And it's the same with Luis. Yes, you can pretty up Louis all you want, and yes, technically, eventually, hopefully if she survives, Lou will be a beautiful face for you. But it's not going to do any good if she just dies. And technically, Luis would be nothing without Lou. But again, it doesn't outright say that. So obviously, Luis doesn't know this. They try to do some push-ups, fail miserably. And then when they go to leave, finally we have that point in which Lou is like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm a little bit tired. It's like, well, why'd you lie to me? Let's go rest. Some additional information that was found throughout Luis's kind of escapades is that obviously those that end up getting an invitation shouldn't be spoken of. It's like this rule that you just don't speak about anybody that gets an invitation. It's almost as if when they go, they're dead. And at the same time, it kind of emphasizes this idea that you're not going to see them anyways, so there's no point in talking about them, which goes back to the whole motto of don't think about things that are trivial. I don't know if this will be significant, but yes, Luis at some point asks Benjamin if he's working out to intimidate other people, and he says no, it's to protect people. And so I'm wondering if this will eventually get into something that Benjamin maybe was involved in something where he wasn't able to protect somebody, and now he is trying to make it to where he can. From Patrick's side, things get a little bit more interesting as we have him kind of console with Ricky, what do we think we should get involved with this? And of course, he relies on Ricky to give him information. It's kind of this ongoing thing where some people have scrutinized Patrick for listening to his living doll too much. But yes, he trusts Ricky, and Ricky does always seem to have the words that he needs to know in order to handle a situation. And so he does ask him, what do you think about this? Should we do this? He's like, yeah, why not? If things go south, they're just going to blame Kate anyway, so let's go ahead. And so that, again, leads them to trying to figure out who all has peers. It seems like Ricky suggests that they try to figure out who possibly knows each other. This is where John comes in, and yes, he's upset because he got reprimanded by the Star Bearers, and for what? For what reason? Because he proclaimed his marriage to Kate without petitioning. Apparently, you're not allowed to get married in the children wing. You have to wait till you become adult. But you can petition. And this is where things get kind of interesting. I'm really curious as to what direction this is going to be going from. But Patrick goes to go get some information around the petitioning, and he ends up running into Sarah, who basically does a huge information dump for all of us. That apparently Sarah's been thinking about this whole petitioning thing for a while now. It seems like she does have somebody in mind. Which again, I'm wondering if that was pointing towards Douglas, because they just previously mentioned that Sarah debuted with Douglas. But at the same time, she is sort of flirting with Ricky. She's saying how Ricky's face is very pleasant to look at. And when Patrick doesn't realize that he's basically saying the same thing for him because your face is you, she sort of gets upset. Says you don't realize they're both you, and gets upset and says grow up and leaves. But the interesting thing that came from this conversation is they mentioned the idea that yes, you can petition, but the only reason the petitioning thing is set up, the only reason it's there is just to be a driving force to become an adult. Because if you petition with somebody in the children wing, you sort of want to succeed together. Because if you don't, if one of them that gets disposed of, you're going to be a laughing stock, basically. Everybody's going to mock you for that. You were petitioned to marry somebody who was a failure. So again, it's kind of an existence to allow to encourage pairs to get up into the adulthood. It was interesting because at this point, he kind of asks Ricky, do living dolls have relationships? Do you have feelings like that? And of course, Ricky says, no, definitely not. More interesting, though, is the following scene where we do see that Patrick sort of has his own desires. He does love flowers, and we can probably imagine where he got that desire from. This whole scene with him and Emilico back in the debut where she gave him one of these flowers. But he has a love for flowers. This is a unique thing that he finds for himself. Despite the fact that everybody believes that he just listens to whatever Ricky tells him, and that he's a mirror of Ricky, the flower aspect is his own thing. This is his own desire, which makes him unique from his face. And that leads to a whole garden scene where we do meet another girl who seems to be at least very shy. I'm not going to say that she's in love with Patrick and Ricky, but possibilities there. But she does find that people that like flowers have a good heart. And she gives him a gift to commemorate them coming there. And sure enough, he takes this gift and almost gives it to Emilico. Because yes, he runs into Luis, Kate, and Emilico in the hallway. And this is interesting because at this point, Patrick reveals that Emilico changed him. The moment that he was stuck in that box in debut and she arrived, this is the point in which he realized that living dolls are kind of a separate entity. That they have their own inner aspects. And that unfortunately, he never feels like he can ever express the thing that he has in his mind, which is that he loves Emilico. He refuses to let anybody know that. This is very, very interesting. The cool thing that I got from this episode overall, like I said, it does feel like they're confirming the whole aspect of the living dolls and the shadow family members having to be one thing at some point, the importance of one and the other being one thing. But what's funny is we're almost seeing a divide happening right here, where we're getting a lot of emphasis upon Luis and Lou that they need to take care of the two of them. They're both important. And yes, technically, even with Patrick and Ricky, him getting emphasis put upon him by Rose that you are the same thing. What do you talk about? You and your face are the same thing. Why are you making that disconnection there? But he is dividing himself. Where it seems like they're trying to put a little emphasis on Lou and Luis to become one thing, it does feel like Ricky and Patrick are becoming separate. Ricky has something that he's in love with. Patrick has something that he's in love with. And not just that, but Patrick has something he's in love with that is not the Shadow family member. It's creating a lot of really interesting questions as to how that's going to, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, break him. But at the same time, this is a perfect thing that could eventually lead Patrick to being a diehard supporter of Kate. Patrick is looking at things the way that the family members should not. There's no way that I can see this world allowing Patrick to be in love with Emilico. He would have to be in love with Kate. I don't see anywhere where they would be allowed this idea of the separation happening, where the two of them have their own desires. But yet Patrick's facing that right now. And again, I think because eventually he's going to run into the rules that are going to go against that, he can't help himself but love Emilico. I'm tired of feeling like I can't express this, and him expressing it will cause him to go against the rules, which allows him to believe, I want to follow Kate, who is going to destroy those rules because I want to be with Emilico. I like the fact that they're bringing up love so much in this storyline at this moment because I think love is a thing that's going to destroy everything. John wants to marry Kate, but there's a fear that she could be disposed of. He wants to get married, but he can't right now. He can only petition. Kate knows about the truth of the living dolls and them being humans. The living dolls themselves know that now that they are supposed to be human. Patrick wants to love Emilico. Ricky has his own interests. Their dear friend Rum and Shirley have been basically destroyed. Everything points that this place is not a good place to be in, and they'll eventually want to all together push against that. I'm just curious at what point we're going to get Luis involved. Luis is the only one in the group so far that's so self-interest and so oblivious as to what she's doing that she hasn't quite found that point in which she's going to have to push back. And so I'm kind of hoping that we'll get that eventually. We got it with Patrick, which was a huge surprise to me, and now I want to see if Luis will go in that route. I almost thought it was going to go in that route just beyond the idea that Lou was starting to become tired and ill, but none of that has to do with the system. Anyways, I have rambled on long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed my video on episode 7 of Shadow House. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what you thought of this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that supports us. No matter what you can give, it's greatly appreciated. And y'all take care.